Yalta is one of the most controversial events of the modern history. What do you think happened at Yalta? How would you describe the Yalta Conference?
Well, those who were there, and here again, I would go back to Ambassador Bolin, who knew something about Soviet-American relations then and later. Those who were there believe that what went wrong at Yalta was not what was agreed to, but the fact that the Russians did not carry out the agreement. Agreement with regard to, for example, elections in Poland and that sort of thing. Once it was agreed to, they didn't even follow it out, whatever. Now, whatever the case may be, what we have to understand is that making an agreement, which was not self-enforcing, was the mistake. Trusting the Russians, if I may use that term, that if we signed an agreement with them, that they would follow it in spirit and letter just as we would. That was the mistake at Yalta. That mistake having been made, it must not make again. We must not make it again.
You don't think then that Franklin Roosevelt was operating either under diminished physical capacity or that he was suffering from pro-communist or indeed communist advisors?
Well, there isn't any question about his own anti-communist ideas as far as Franklin Roosevelt is concerned. There, however, is some question with regard to advisors. Advisors who were not pro-communist, but advisors, I would put it, who were naive about the communists. Maybe there were some that were pro-communist, but I think the latter, what Lenin has referred to as the useful idiots, those who don't know better and should know better, that was the real problem.
Do you discount Alger Hiss's role as a Roosevelt advisor at Yalta then?
I do not know what his role was, but the fact he was there is not reassuring, because there's no question but that he was a communist at that time, and certainly that could have had some effect. I would say further that with regard to Roosevelt at Yalta, I talked to Winston Churchill about it, and he tried to be diplomatic about it, but he said there was no question, and he has written this as well, but he said it very emphatically to me, that President Roosevelt was not at his best at Yalta. And what happened was that Roosevelt, in effect, joined with Stalin and supported Stalin's views against Churchill. And Churchill fought a valiant but losing battle in attempting to deal with the Russians on a realistic, tough-minded basis. And that was the tragedy. I am not going to judge those who were advising Roosevelt on the basis of whether they were pro or anti-communist. That has nothing to do with it. It has something to do with it, but the real problem is something very different, and that is, and much more serious looking at today's problems, and that is they were naive about the Russians and what they might do. And that is going to be our greatest danger in the future.